Hey guys, Chicken and Maine, Debut.com with a Debut.com forecast update. This forecast update effective around 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019. And OK, would like to welcome new followers over to our YouTube channel and those over from our social feeds. If you're tuning in for the first time, we are primarily a surf and maritime forecast covering the North Atlantic waters during hurricane season, tropical cyclone season. We track tropical cyclones. So our main audience is surfers and mariners. But during hurricane season, we get a lot of people that don't surf or have a boat or rarely get to the ocean that follow our forecast. So now is the time where we start to increase the number of followers, and then as the season ends, for those who aren't surfers and mariners, they drop off until the season begins again. Guys, we are 39 days away from the official start of the 2019 Atlantic Tropical Cyclone season. The East Pacific season starts May 15th. And one of the things in our observations over the years is if you use May 15th just as the benchmark, forget the 15-day gap, we're really getting close to homegrown season, and that's how the season starts. It progresses from the Gulf of Mexico off the southeast U.S. coast, then down into the southern Caribbean, and from there, as the months carry on, then we start watching systems out towards the Caribbean, the MDR, and then by September, October, our focus is out there towards Africa, watching those strong tropical waves move off and then head towards the U.S. Also, if you go back to 2012, you'll see that there's been a slight uptick in tropical cyclone activity and early seasonal development. Those years included a January hurricane, that was Hurricane Alex, and then an April tropical storm, Arlene, and I think 4 to 5 tropical May storms, or that may have developed right there at June 1st. So for those who aren't surfers or mariners, bear with us a minute. We need to catch up our followers on Easter Swell 2019. Now, I'm going to take you back to April 20th. This image is from April 20th, and that's when we were advertising Easter Swell 2019. A lot of guys didn't get surf on Easter, so they probably think that our forecast was kind of bunk. Now, there was some surf alert conditions along the mid-Atlantic up in here into the northeast over the holiday weekend, and then most of you saw that we were tracking this gale that was developing out here on the backside of Bermuda, out here west of the Azores in here, and we'll advance the model for you. Now, this was the most recent system that you see over here off the southeast United States in here, this area of low pressure wrapping up like this. This is what gave that strong southerly suck-up swell that came in for you guys over the holidays, for those who were fortunate enough to score. And then now, this gale that developed on the backside, now we're seeing the real-time data show up on the buoys. Now, guys, I don't know if you saw on our social feeds the post about the buoys. It is a crying shame that the National Data Buoy Center is in the condition that it is in, that they either don't have the funds, ain't making the time, or the weather just ain't right to service these buoys or redeploy the buoys. If you were to look at 85% of the network, and I may be stretching that a little bit, but you'll see that most buoys are non-operational. We might have 2 or 3 over here in the Gulf, and maybe 2 or 3 over in this region, but that's it, guys. These buoys, they're scheduled for maintenance and scheduled for redeployment, but you know, it makes it harder on a forecaster like myself when you can't verify the data on the buoys. So with that said, let me advance this for you a couple of days and watch how this low tightens up in here. This is going into April 21st. April 22nd, which was yesterday. So as the system wraps up here to there, that's northeast charge of swell in the water. And that's what we're seeing on the buoys on the South Bermuda buoy, and then on the Puerto Rico buoy should be showing up this morning 10 to 12 seconds. And then as we got into yesterday, that opens up the easterly fetch here. Look at this easterly fetch in here. That's all aimed at the southeast U.S. coast, and we're starting to see that on the northeast Bahama buoy down in here, and now it's working its way into the East Canaveral buoy. We'll give you the buoy update in just a second, but then look how this area of low pressure has moved off this way like this. And one of the things that we watch for during tropical season is in the trough, because we always like to say, always watch tail ends of fronts or along stalled or dying fronts for an area of low pressure to develop. So we get this sweeping motion like this in the jet stream, and you've got this southerly suck up on this side. So we start to look down here at the tail end of the front, and what do we see here? We see some clustering of the clouds. Now, this is the intertropical convergence zone in here, and the reason why I'm pointing this out is because there's a shot, at least the European model is suggesting that a weak area of low pressure may try to pull up in here towards the Bahamas in about 7 or 8 days, and then maybe work its way up to the coast. Now, mind you guys, all season long, we've talked about model reliability outside of 7 days, how it hasn't been good. But the European model is in back-to-back runs now in that 7 to 10 day period that we may be watching a piece of energy try to work its way in here towards the Western Caribbean. And as this dips down in here like this, it's going to suck it up into the Bahamas. We'll show you that here in the models just a moment. Let me give you the buoy update, and we'll start you off over here with 49. Which is the South Bermuda buoy. You drop down here towards the detailed wave summary, guys, and you can see that the buoy now has 8 feet of swell height, 12 seconds, east-northeast direction, and that's from that gale that we showed you in just a few moments. Right now, the South Bermuda buoy is not, there's no way to tell that it's at its peak, but it looks like it is at the moment. We've got solid postings of 8 foot, all the way to this last one here. You know, unless it gets to 9 or 10, then you don't know if the buoy has peaked or not. If you see it drop back down to 5 to 6, then you know the buoy has peaked, and then that swell energy is now heading in towards the PR buoy. Switching you over to the PR buoy now, we see that the swell height now has reached 6 feet in swell height out of the east-northeast, but we're not seeing anything longer than 10 seconds here yet. But again, this buoy gives you an indicator, or the South Bermuda buoy that we just showed you, gives you the indicator of what swell is heading in this way. Now, switch you over to the Northeast Bahama buoys, and the buoys that we're showing you, these are what's called the indicator buoys. It tells you how much swell is out there in the ocean, where it's heading to, and the Northeast Bahama buoy has had some east-southeast swell on it, coming in at about 6 to 7 feet yesterday afternoon. It's now since dropped down to about 4 foot, but this energy, this east-southeast energy now is inbound towards the East Canaveral buoy, and the East Canaveral buoy has bumped up just a tad. Drop down to the detailed wave summary down in here, and you'll see that the buoy has gone from 3 feet to 4 feet out of the east, and that energy is also working its way. But then we've got that easterly fetch that we showed you that opened up in this system yesterday. But unfortunately, the West Bermuda buoy, no data. It went adrift, one of the hurricanes last year. The South Hatteras buoy is only just giving you wind data, and so it's hard to track timing of what swell and how big is coming in between this area right here. But that East Canaveral buoy's in here, the Northeast Bahama buoy's in here, so that east-southeast swell now, watch this East Canaveral buoy later today for a bump, but then we've also got that bump coming from that northeast direction as well. So this gives us a solid push of swell heading this way. Switch you over to the latest 24-hour swell forecast out of the Ocean Prediction Center, and you'll see how the swell progresses towards the southeast U.S. coast. And then here's the 48 zoomed. 12 to 13 second front runner periods, guys. Keep an eye on the buoys here over the next 24 to 48 hours. Okay, switch you back now to real time, guys. This is this morning's visible, and what you see over here on the right, here's what's left over of that gale. Here's a area of low pressure that moved off in here, off the mid-Atlantic yesterday. That could have enhanced a little bit of surf conditions up here in the Northeast. But I want you to look at the atmospheric flow in here. So we have this spinning like this. Okay, so that's drawing down like this, like pulling on the coattail right here, if you will. Okay, and you have this spinning like this. Again, guys, if we were to think of this as a question mark, where does the period go? Right in here, okay? Always watch tail ends up fronts or along stalled or dying fronts for an area of low pressure to develop. Pay attention to that now when we show you the models here in just a few moments. Let me slide this over. This is the system that is working its way towards the east across the U.S. This is starting to fire up now. So your rotation is like this, counterclockwise. So this is pulling in like this, a flow like this. And this is going to come and go sweeping out like this. Well, once this does, this is going to drag this front this way, and we may see the same scenario, because if you've been following along on our social feeds, you know, we talk about repetitive pattern. You know, how many times have we seen an area of low pressure in the last 30 days that's developed over here and come off this way? So we're in a repetitive pattern, and sometimes that pattern can be revealing when you think about it in that way. All right, switch you over to last night's run of the European model, and just so that you just so that we can verify, here's the remnants of that gale that's right in here. If you can see my cursor, here's that area of low pressure that moved off the mid-Atlantic. There's another area of low pressure. This one actually, I think, is producing some snow, and this is the last gasp of winter, guys. This is, if we go back to the beginning of April, and you followed us along on our social feeds, you know, we talked about chain event, climatic event coming, the end of climatic winter. This is it. This is the final stages before we go into homegrown season or tropical season, and that's the way that it starts, and we've already seen signs in the atmosphere that the atmosphere has switched to more tropical in nature. So going back to the visual imagery, here's that area of low pressure that we talked about there. Here's that one that moved off the mid-Atlantic coast, and then here is the remnants of that gale. We'll go back and put the model into motion for you. Moving over the next 24 to 48 hours, you'll see the movement off towards the northeast. That gale kinds of breaks down, but then wants to kind of marry in here. No surf. Get what you can, what's coming, but then what comes in the later end of the forecast, I want you to pay attention towards the Bahamas now. This is day 7, day 8, day 9, and day 10. And you'll see the lifting up over Cuba and into the Bahamas. This is a key signature that tropical season is on the way, guys. And if we were to wait for the Euro to update this afternoon, it is possible that what we would see is this start to wrap up this way like this, as this then gets dragged out to sea. No threat to the U.S., it doesn't look like it. It's just weak area of low pressure. But remember, for you non-surfers or mariners, all we need is spin over the ocean to create waves. So what I'm trying to tell the surfers and the mariners is as this low pressure gets up in here off the South Florida coast, for those who may even have some cruises lined up, pay attention to the upcoming forecast, guys. Not trying to hype, but what I'm doing is showing you that this pattern's going to come back again. There's another front that's going to come in another 2 or 3 weeks, and we may see this exact same thing set up, but this time we see tropical development. Okay, I'm going to finish up by going back to last year. This is May 19th, 2018. What did we just point out to you a few moments ago? Always watch tail ends of fronts or along stalled or dying fronts for an area of low pressure to develop. If we was to make this into a question mark, where do we find the period? Right? Also, look, check this out. This looks kind of familiar, doesn't it? Takes on the shape of maybe what that gale is that we see in real time out here that just developed, that just gave us the Easter Swell 2019. Let me advance the model for you, because in about 6 days, just like we're showing you now at the beginning of this video, sometimes the atmosphere can reveal its hand a week later. This goes into May 22nd, May 23rd. Notice that round the corner, guys, for those who have followed us. Area of low pressure develops off Costa Rica, Panama, moves up into the Gulf of Honduras, where it can start to draw. And then look what happens. A front comes in, just like I just got finished showing you on that curvature with the European model at that 10-day. And then boom, tropical cyclone in the Gulf of Mexico, Alberto, making landfall along the Alabama-Florida border. I believe it was Panama City, one or the other. I'd have to zoom in here. Let me zoom in. So again, if you go back to 2012, you'll see that there's a slight uptick in early seasonal development. Guys, that's all I got for you for now. Stay tuned for the updates. Follow us on our social feeds, on Twitter at Dadabu, on Instagram, Dabu Surf, and on Facebook, Dabu. Follow us on Twitter for our real-time updates, guys. When we get into battle here, and we say battle, Twitter is where we spend all of our time. And so if you want real-time updates or on a system that may affect you, follow us on Twitter. You can set your push alerts and turn them on and off whenever you got something that doesn't apply to you or your region or your part of the country. That's all we got for you for now. Thanks for following.